So this is my Mountfield RS100, also known as the SP414, which you can probably see in there. And it keeps cutting out every time you use it, and YouTube videos tell me it's most likely carburetor, so I'm going to give it a service, going to replace the air filter, the spark plug, clean the carburetor, and also put some additives in with the fuel. So here we go. So I need to take the air filter cover off, take the air filter out, and then we're going to have to remove this housing by undoing these two, and then I know there's a couple of pipes. So there's a pipe that's attached from the this kind of pump that goes into the carburetor, so we're going to need to undo that as well. So I'll start by undoing those screws. Okay, nuts are off. There was a 10mm spanner that you needed for that. All right, let's see how this comes off. I'm just going to try and remove this. Okay, so in order to remove that, there's this pipe, which I'm guessing is like an air intake or outtake, I don't know, that is attached to that. Try and get to that little nozzle there. And just by pulling, it came off at that end, so that's the end. I'm not going to bother trying to take it off at this end as well. So I now need to undo that clip. Oh yeah, and then the next is that clip, right? Just want to be careful of that gasket on the front. Okay, so the clip is off. I should be able to pull that. Should be able to pull that up, but not easily. There we go.
Hi, Daddy.
I've given that a quick clean up just to get the worst of it off, give it a quick brush, and then got the air duster on it, so that's looking better. You can see this is absolutely filthy, so I've got a lot of this has never been cleaned or serviced in 10 years, so this is absolutely caked with gunk. So next step is I need to clamp off the fuel line. The YouTube videos that I saw complained about the fuel pipe being rock hard, but this one's still actually got a lot of play in it, so I assume that's good news. Right, I'm going to clamp that off. Right, so that fuel pipe is now clamped off, so I should now be able to, if I remove the clip, get a better grip. Oh yeah, that's easier. Okay, so the fuel line is out of the way. Let's just clean the worst of that off. That is not moving at all. Right, let's try.
You only see the black bit, but the black bit of your hat isn't covering anything.
Okay, so make sure you can see it, yeah? That's about to come loose. There's a little bit of cloth to just soak this up with. Perfect. Okay. All right, let me take the camera. All right, so you can see that get a bit right, so you can see that that's successfully clamped off and removed the fuel pipe from the carburetor. Okay, so now the next bits that I'm believe we need to do are to remove the two sort of metal couplings from here. So I'm going to try and have a go at that next. Okay, unlike the YouTube videos, in my case, that gasket has come straight off, so I'm just going to pop that in my little parts box. It's not entirely clear at the moment. This one looks like it just hooks over into the little plastic eyelet there, so that one should be pretty straightforward. This one I'm slightly less clear on, so I'm going to deal with the lower one first. I'm just going to take that off and then just clean things up a little bit, so hopefully I can see what's going on. Okay, so they're both out. So the second, the thinner, the thinner of the two is very straightforward. That just goes through the little eyelet. The fatter one, you need to kind of get the angle right, and then it pops up, straight up and out, so it sits in a little tiny recess in there that needs to go down far enough until the arm is then swinging through that gap. So that's what I did. I just put some pressure on it and it popped out. Right, I'm going to remove the carb. I'm going to put it in a tray and start cleaning. There's also this back plate which is loose, which I'm going to take off and again just clean that up as well. Just brush air dust and then put it back just so that's done out of the way. And then whilst I've got that off, I'll probably just give a very quick brush and clean in there as well, just to get the worst of it off. Right, so this is absolutely minging. That's the way it goes on. There's another gasket on the back. I don't know if that's going to come loose or not. What I need to do next is undo the bolt at the bottom so that I can remove that the cap, drain the excess fuel out and remove the cap. Okay, I'm really struggling to get that bolt out from the bottom. So far no luck at all, so I'm just going to see what I can do to get some more leverage on it. Okay, cool, so I gripped it with a bit of cloth around the housing and I managed to get enough leverage to loosen the bolt, so I'm going to have a look inside now. You can see there's a bunch of fuel coming out. Okay, so the fuel has drained out, so I've decided that before I actually dismantle it, what I'm going to do is just get rid of the worst of this, the crud that's on the top. All right, scrape the worst off with a screwdriver and then gave it a quick blast with the air duster, just so there's no big clumps of dirt on there now, and I feel a bit more confident about taking it apart and not just making it worse than it was. I actually decided to get the carb cleaner out and I've gone over it with that still before I've opened it up, and it's looking much better, much better. So right, I'm going to open it up now. Okay, so I opened it up and it is absolutely chock-a-block. If I put that in the sun you might be able to see better. It's completely full of crud. It's disgusting. Same on the underside. Absolutely thick with crud. So yeah, no wonder it wasn't working well. So I'm going to change the newspaper and then get the carb cleaner on it. So I've removed the rubber ring that seals the two components together. Yeah, and now I'm going to clean. There's a little bit of staining in the bottom of that, and one of the videos that I watched, I think it was Mixed Mowers, suggested a bit of steel wool just to clean it up, so that's what I'm going to do now. It's come up a bit better. I would say that was good enough. Okay, I'm just going to flip the paper over again because there's a lot of crap that's been sprayed out of the reservoir on there. And then we're going to remove the pin, take off the float, and then unscrew that central bit. The pin's out, float's out, it came off no problem at all. I'm going to remove that central bit and clean this up. Alright, the pin and the jet came out no problem. So I'm just going to inspect them, give them a clean. Okay, so those have been removed and cleaned. I don't have any tiny little picks that I can get into those holes to clean them out, but when spraying the carb cleaner down the jet, you can see it coming out of the hole, so I suspect it's okay, and it's had a lot of carb cleaner put down there now, so it should be a lot better than it was. Right, next is to remove these bits. This first, and then this, and then to clean inside those. Alright, that first screw's been removed, but that's a really odd head. It's not a proper screw head, it's just a half moon type thing, but it came out with the same screwdriver that I used for the jet, no problem at all. So, and there is quite a lot of crud around it, so I'm just going to now try and pop this out by just applying small amounts of pressure to either side until it comes out. Okay, that's out. That's definitely the bit that made me most nervous so far, because it doesn't feel like it wants to come out, and there's no thread as such. It just pops in and pops out. So, but it's out. It came out cleanly, so you can see that there's some nastiness around there. So I'm just going to clean things up, and then that will go straight back in. All right, first major mistake, and this was mentioned on one of the videos that I watched, but I obviously didn't pay enough attention. Despite removing this carefully, I left it sitting in some of the excess carb spray. It has expanded and it no longer fits. So I can't put things back together now. I'm going to have to buy a replacement. I don't know whether I'll be able to get hold of one today, or if I'm going to have to order one especially. But we'll find out. Other than that, everything went back together perfectly well, so I'm going to put it in like a small box of some description to keep the dust off, and then I will put things back together once I've got a new rubber ring. Okay, so I can't finish off the carb, but I may as well change the spark plug whilst I'm here. So I'm going to do that now. I've got a 21mm spark plug socket set, a new NGK plug. I'm just going to start by taking the old one out. I know these are a bit of a pain to remove, so I probably need both hands, so I'll come back in a minute. Alright, the old plug is out, and that is pretty minging. So hopefully replacing that will improve things as well. New spark plug's in, seated correctly. I've tightened it to what I think feels like the same kind of tightness as the one that was removed. So I'll get the cap back on now. Well, that was fine, that went on fine. So obviously I'm just super disappointed with myself that I've damaged that rubber seal, because that's the only thing I can't do right now. Alright, so I just talked to a local mower repair centre, and they said that, you know, it's very common for these to expand, and you can sometimes force them back in, which I've now tried and I can't, or you can just keep cutting little tiny bits out until it fits, as a stopgap measure until you can get a replacement. So I'm going to do that. I am going to cut it down to size until it squeezes in there, put things back together, see how we get on. Alright, I'm happy with that. Just cut that down. It actually looks a better fit off camera than it does on. So yeah, I can put it back together. Okay, so the bowl has gone back on. That's done up. I'm going to, I've just slid it just slightly onto the retaining bars, and I'm now going to try and reattach the little linkages. Linkages are back on. Back with a pair of pliers, putting that and pushing down on it. That went back no problem at all. So, all right, let's reassemble the rest of it. So I've replaced the gasket. Now I'm going to replace the fuel line. I won't unclamp it yet, but replace it. And then I'll replace the other fuel line and get the Jubilee clip or whatever it's called in place, and then get this air outlet hooked back up and the bolts back on. Both fuel lines back on. Now I'm going to line this up, get the air hose on, and then the bolts. Air hose reattached. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe just about. You can see that in there. The air hose is reattached. Bolts are done. So I'm now going to fit the new air filter. I could have just cleaned up. I could have just cleaned up the old one, but I figured, you know, why not? It's minimal expense, so why not? New air filter in. Just put the cap back on. I was going to put the additives into the fuel, but I'm not going to do that yet because I don't want to confuse the results just in case that does have some sort of negative impact. So I'm going to put the cover back on the air filter and then try and fire her up. So first thing is, if we do the fuel pump, we're going to need to prime the carbs, and we should get that kind of sucking sound after a few pumps. There we go. Okay, I would say that was primed. All right.
Pretty good.
Okay, so it fired up and sounds good, which is excellent. It would occasionally do that beforehand. 9 times out of 10 it would start and then stop, but occasionally it would keep running until you actually try to cut the grass. So that's what I'm going to do next. There you have it. Ran like a charm. No speeding up or slowing down, no cutting out. Yeah, it's worth a treat. Very pleased with that. And for the curious amongst you, there's no fuel leak from that bodged gasket. So honestly, I don't know whether I'll actually get around to replacing it with a new one. I think it'll be fine as is. There you go.